Yeah.
It's like when the batter swings and loses control of the bat and the bat flies over the netting into the stands, and it's a common occurrence.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for coming back to a special edition of Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. We hope this special edition becomes special editions. We would love to bring back someone who spent some time with me a few years ago by the name of Charlie. Charlie is an interesting person because he's a huge baseball fan and he's been following the issue with me on and off for the last 7 years. So I would love to talk about the premise of what I think we are going to be discussing with Charlie and Brianna on a weekly basis. This is edition number one, and we are in early August 2026, middle of the professional baseball season. So, for those people tuning in for the first time and are curious to hear what our conversations are going to be like, we appreciate that. Foul ball safety now started back in 2019 when I saw something very disturbing on the news, which involved a child getting unfortunately hurt by a serious line drive. And I thought at the time that we could probably step up and do something about this, that it looked like madness why child or children would be exposed to these regular line drives. So, a knee jerk reaction got me to make bold statements to the Yankees and the Mets, offering them crazy money because I was in a position to make the change. I felt like I was going to make that gesture, that grand gesture to the Mets and the Yankees. And of course, they didn't receive my message or take it to heart because they realize that I'm just a regular Joe who's throwing some cash around and they're not going to have a conversation with me. And I understand. So I backed up and I got organized and I started something called Foul Ball Safety Now. I was introduced to an investigative reporter by the name of Brendan, and we've been chronicling all things foul balls and bats for the last 7 seasons. And it's very disturbing because when people discover our wealth of information, Brendan and I have interviewed more than 90 people. One third of those people are victims and family members. And we continually meet these people on a monthly basis, people that have been unfortunately struck by the inevitable foul ball or, unfortunately, the bat. Bats are definitely in the news. We just learned about a $10 million lawsuit that's going down at Yankee Stadium. We'll get into all those particular details because right now, what I do separately from what we're going to try today is every week, Brianna and I have one or two new meetings every single week with actors, doctors, PhDs, lawyers, forensic psychologists, nurses, you name it. We've done more than 100 recordings since August of 2025, inquiring minds that want to know. They get introduced to our website through different platforms and they take part as guest hosts. So, what usually would happen is I'll go on saying something like, "Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming back to another recording of Foul Ball Safety Now." Talks with Brianna. And what we'll do is we'll talk about how all things have happened in the last 7 years and usually end with news updates. Maybe that's 5 or 10 minutes. And then after that, we go about 40 minutes with our guest hosts who lead the discussion with us. They bring very interesting questions because they're just finding out about this issue in detail for the first time. Some of the guests have been baseball fans, some of them have not been, but they seem to all be fascinated about why all of these issues haven't really been properly addressed. And it's very nice because we really have more than 90% approval rating because after these 45-minute experiences of these questions and conversations that are brought over to us, they sign on to be part of the permanent library. They're part of the continuum. People are curious, probably at some point when these conversations get out there, to hear what the pediatric neurologist asked me in December or what two lawyers tag teamed me with in November. So we've been going strong. We're entering, I guess, our 12th month, and we have more than 100 of these recordings. People will discover if they Google Foul Ball Safety Now talks today, they would discover maybe a dozen of the 100 that we put up so people can listen and get a sense of what this is. We have the entire recordings up for people to see. I'm very excited to bring back Charlie. Charlie is going to back in the fold with us. We're going to take this one experience at a time, but I do believe we're going to have a very positive continuum and have a weekly opportunity to peel back the onion in real time and justify why these conversations are important. We are, in essence, a collection of news of what we can discuss weekly. And Charlie was in the fold a couple of seasons ago, and we really wrote a great first draft of a play, which I guess chronicled my time up until we wrote the play, which was how I got started and all things on what's wrong with the baseball industrial complex, taking it one category at a time of why nobody else has connected the dots to this issue and why it may not have been in their best interest. We simply have the collection of information. We are the grand jury of a few. Every week, there's new people that come into this grand jury of a few and investigate this with us. We do appreciate that. In essence, we're like a truth commission. And right now, we're excited to bring on Charlie Schumann. Brianna, would you like to introduce Charlie?
Of course, yeah. Charlie is a playwright, theater producer, and an adjunct professor at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts. Welcome, Charlie Schulman.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me, Brianna. And Jordan, it's great to be back with you. Writing that play together, play is called The Baseball Rule, and it's about how you got interested in foul ball safety. It's great to be back with you. You know, I'm a lifelong baseball fan, and I was just thinking about the first game that I ever went to in 1970 with my father at Yankee Stadium. He bribed the usher. He gave him a $5 bill and brought us down to the box seats, so we were right up by the field. Frank Howard, I don't know if you remember Frank Howard, but
Yes.
he was a huge man. He was, like, not quite as big as Aaron Judge, but at the time, he was like a monster. He was giant. Frank Howard hit a foul ball, screaming line drive that hit my chair. It hit the back of my seat just, right by my left shoulder and flew up into the air, and I was terrified by that. It's my first experience at, a baseball game. I proceeded to promptly forget about it completely, Jordan,
Mhm,
and I become a great baseball fan. I'm a Yankee fan. I was a fan since the '70s, and that was a different kind of Yankees, Jordan.
mhm,
The Yankees of the '70s came in 5th place and 6th, but my favorite player was Gene Michael and Horace Clarke. You know, it made me think about, like, what is that? Like, what happened? Like, my father didn't even say, "Gee, maybe it's" my father, who was a very careful person, he
mhm,
didn't even say, "Well, maybe it's dangerous to be sitting in the good seats," you know, or
mhm.
"Maybe we should move." We never even thought about it again. And that kinda leads me to, like, what's going on at Yankee Stadium right now with, like, there's a and if you go to Foul Ball Safety Now, you'll see, the New York Bat S crazy, video,
Yeah, the batshit crazy video,
batshit
absolutely.
crazy video,
Several
right,
videos at Yankee Stadium, including the
of
one that was
bats
just filed.
flying.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when the batter swings and loses control of the bat and the bat flies over the netting into the stands, and it's a common occurrence. I live in Washington, DC now. I went to a Nats game a few weeks ago and it happened, and there's several balls that go into the crowd in every game. We're minor league, major league, anywhere. But something's going on with bats. I don't really get it. There's a flurry of it right now, and as you mentioned in the lead up to this, there's this $10 million lawsuit from, I believe it's June 2nd, against the Cleveland Guardians.
It's
A bat
against
flew,
Yankee Stadium and the netting company, actually,
yeah,
but yeah, absolutely. So,
and,
yeah, go ahead.
and a woman was hit in the head
Yes,
and suffered serious injuries, and
no doubt.
She's suing them for $10 million.
Yes.
And I'm
And
just wondering, what's going on? Is this just something that always has been happening? And, we're getting the video
yes.
now and we're putting it together, right? People are suing. And
Well, not enough people have been effectively able to find lawyers over the years because of the baseball rule. So that's why
right,
it hasn't really made the radar of the regulators. So that's basically no internal lessons have been learned because obviously Brendan and I, the research person that I've been with now for 7 years, I was contacted by a major law firm. So there was a bat that actually struck a mother and an infant child nearly a decade ago, and obviously no internal lessons have been learned because this baby was in critical condition, or maybe not in critical condition, but had brain surgeries and other things like that, and had a hardship growing up. And it was years and years and years later where they were really on their own. And we found out about this, it wasn't reported. So obviously, business as usual allows bats to continually find their way into people, and that's not acceptable. And we feel like it's probably time for a national timeout. And, we've all celebrated the game together, Charlie. You know what? We could all mourn the game together. And you know what? We could all rise again tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow. Whether you're secular, whether you're agnostic, whether you're religious, whether you're atheist, I'll show you in one day, people. And everyone would say, like, Jordan, what do you mean a national timeout? Are you extreme? You're going extreme. No, I'm not going extreme. I'm saying once we take a national timeout, what we'll determine in a day is that there's architects, engineers, and designers in every zip code on every level of baseball. Certainly the billionaires they would be like, whoa, we got this. That'll be the easiest job they were ever commissioned. That all they would be doing is putting up poles and nets and protocols so Brianna and her young 2-year-old know exactly where to park in places like Modesto, California, no strings and conditions attached. You could have a tailgate outside, no strings and conditions attached, and you can go inside and have a snack with your baby and walk out of there unscathed. What a concept. It's doable, Charlie, and I'm going for it. I'm going for it's time for a national timeout. It's time for these billionaires to get the F out and new billionaires to get in. What's done is done, Charlie. I could write books about what we all never knew and the epiphany of awareness that I'm springing onto you. But right now, there's a fire in the theater. And I want this to be addressed, and I am working on getting an attorney as we speak to go to court. We just wrote attorney Letitia James this afternoon, Brendan and I, and we have a nice tight letter for her telling her that this incident's happening at Yankee Stadium and Citi Field, and maybe we'll get her attention, and maybe she'll be able to go to court and say it's time for a temporary stoppage of play. You can't continue to allow people coming to these seats having bats thrown at them, and I'm only watching 2 games a night. I'm not watching the other 13 games. There's 15 games usually every single night, and I'm picking this stuff up just on regular video, Charlie.
well, surely this is an issue that everyone can agree on. Nobody wants to see people get hit in the head with baseball bats or balls. And, my question is, there's only so far a human being, even a major league baseball player, can, throw a bat, right? When they're swinging at a ball, they mistakenly let go of the bat flies over third base or over first base, over the netting. into the stands and
Yep.
someone gets hurt or maimed,
Right.
surely there is a 100% solution
Right.
to this problem. I understand the balls here, a ball there. Something's maybe somewhere, and there's something you can't do about it. But with a bat, there must be 100% effective way to prevent fans from getting hit. Like over the
Yes.
top,
It's the
netting
easiest
over the top.
job for an architect, engineer, and designer. They just have to be given the data and they'll create a baseball civilized society. They can guarantee with a little bit of ingenuity, they can
Right.
guarantee that Brianna and a kid are fine. What a
I mean,
concept.
the argument that MLB has always made in the past was that they don't want the netting to be so high, but because it would get in the way of the view. All right, that is their argument. But what about this kind of horizontal netting over a certain area where of seating to
Yeah,
protect people from getting hit by bats?
I know.
That wouldn't affect the view at all.
I
So
know.
I don't understand why that can't be done.
You see, what a lot of fans, Charlie, have a hard time doing, especially the ones that come on the continuum, is they have a hard time blaming baseball right away. They want to give baseball the benefit of the doubt while
Right.
they've possessed all of this information for years. So when they're putting out things like our fans aren't interested in extended nets, at the same time, they're possessing the disturbing data that nobody's asked for them to show just how many
Mhm.
hundreds of thousands of balls are going into seats. People should check out Exhibit A1 on the website. That Exhibit A1 was actually used in a complaint by a lawyer recently, citing that as a source of information for their complaint. It demonstrates hundreds of thousands of balls
Mhm.
that go into the seats or outside the ballpark because we're not just talking 30 major league teams. I've been tracking 169 other professional teams, and it is disturbing when people can see just how many times that potentially they were in harm's way. One thing that this report does not include is how many of those hundreds of thousands of balls were going at 100 miles per hour. I don't know the answer to that, Charlie, but
Mhm.
somebody does within MLB. Once we decide to persist and finally extract that data from MLB, everyone's going to scratch their head really hard and say, we went to games how many times a year over 10 years? Three
Right.
times a year. That's 30 times. How many times before 2019 were balls going at 100? Well, MLB's been tracking decades, certainly for the last decade or two. Why doesn't somebody ask them? They keep track of exit velocities and launch angles. So I encourage people to take a slow look at Exhibit A1 and you can
Mhm.
retrace your steps and decide for yourself if you should be offended or not. That's what we want to do, Charlie. And you, as
Right.
an artist and as a storyteller, I do believe, and as a baseball guy who understands the game intimately, can be part of our weekly discussions, and we'll figure out how to get rubber meeting road with all of the baseball constituents out there.
Yeah, I think yeah, you're right. But why isn't there an uproar? It's because fans don't realize what danger that they're in. Even though kids get hit in the head,
Right.
people are getting injured all the time. Bats are, but why is that? Why do people feel like they're safe
Yes.
when they're not?
I
I
can
think
give
that's
you
like
I
a
can
really big question.
exactly, we haven't been able to penetrate why people aren't more aware of the realities, and I believe the reason why is just from what Brianna and I recently have done, we've dissected a couple of, 250-year anniversary, of our country, MLB spinning their infomercials out there,
Hmm.
kids' narration, images of baby at their first game, even clips that we're taking off of YouTube from these edited down Mets and Yankees games, because those are the games I'm mostly asking Brianna to review. And I
Hmm.
say, Brianna, check out this moment. Player's first game, family, a baby's first game. on the shoulders of dad, outside the ballpark, images. It's all a very slick advertising campaign.
Yeah,
It
and if he's
feeds the
done yes,
Americans as wholes, gotta keep coming,
absolutely.
gotta keep coming. And they're doing that in 2026, and they have no right to do that because there's no balance. They're not putting out their data every winter about exactly what happens the year before and what they anticipate happening the year after. But the website Foul Ball Safety Now, any investigative reporter would have a field day at it because they could connect the dots of the root of the game. Certainly since 1970, when a 14-year-old boy got hit at Dodger Stadium, Charlie, and
Mhm,
maybe that was around the time that you had a near freaking incident at Yankee Stadium from Frank
mhm,
Howard. So,
mhm.
but in the case of Alan Fish, didn't work out. He got hit and he died a few days later. And obviously it wasn't 50, it was only 40, it took 45 years for some nets to go above dugouts from
Well, I think yeah,
1970 to 2015, 16.
I think MLB has had a huge investment in creating this illusion of safety. And
Right.
when you go to games these days, there's so much of the jumbotron is all about, family friendly. It's, this is for your family. This is for kids. It's a kids game. It's a family game. You're safe. This is a great thing to do with your family. And baseball is a great thing to do with your family, unless your kid gets hit in the head with a baseball, you
Right.
know?
And unfortunate, that's sad because we have something called the Less Than 1% Injured Club. With something I
Right.
put up around 6 months ago. If there's 100,000,000 fans, have there really 1,000,000 people that have had life-altering experiences since the inception of the baseball rule in 1913? Probably not. But do we know of thousands upon thousands upon thousands? And are there always new entries into the Less Than 1% Injured Club? Yes, unfortunately, there are. There's too many entries all the time into the Less Than 1% Injured Club. And yes, those families will be affected. Brendan and I, again, we've interviewed 90 people, one third of those people, victims and family members, just like three in the last few months. So things are happening. Bats are flying into infants nearly a decade ago at major league games. And 10 years later, and bats are still flying over nets, as we just learned from the Yankees of what's happening in the last few days from a new lawsuit, plus a few others at Yankee Stadium and Citi Field in the last calendar year or 13, 14 months that we've documented. And that's just 2 games out of 15 that I'm just tracking myself. So we wanna make the right noise. We hope Miss James will pay attention to what we believe it's time for, at very least, a timeout for a few days to make sure that netting is installed at least till the end of the season to prevent bats from coming anywhere near fans' heads. And then in the off season, come up with something that finally addresses all the unknown factors that Brianna and her family and others face when they go to these parking lots in places like Brooklyn. And Charlie, it happened to me more than 20 years ago when I was with a group of people young and old. And lo and behold, we're all standing on Surf Avenue and a ball hit a young person we were with that day in the group right in the forearm. So we can create a baseball civilized society. We just flew to the dark side of the moon a few months ago, and I'm like, architects, engineers, and designers, watch what they render up in one day. Come on, people. That's my attitude. Get it done. So I got to keep on beating the drum and hold the vigil of one. And you guys are great. Brianna's great. Charlie, I hope you keep coming back because we'll have a working relationship that is putting everything into context from a point of view and from several different points of views, from an artist point of view, from a human being point of view, from a storytelling point of view. So it's good to have you today.
So MLB has a lot of work to do. What is the state of play in the minor leagues, in colleges? I know you have been involved with what's going on over at Henneken Field in Queens College. Can you give us an update on that, Jordan?
Yeah, of course. So again, it would be great to have, 3 people like Brendan and 3 people like Brianna and people who I pay to do certain projects, but we don't know how the season had progressed in Queens College this year. But we do know that the student athlete found me last year and I followed through and took him seriously. Balls are flying outside ballparks in minor league fields, as I was mentioning what happened to me in Brooklyn 20 years ago, in Modesto, California. On the website, there's a tab called Unknown Modesto, where a lawyer called me and said, "Hey, Jordan, our client was hit outside." It's typical that within 3 hours, a batting practice session and a game, there could be one or many balls that are going to hit the sidewalk or the car window, or yes, my little friend from way back when, and a family friend, and this woman in Modesto. It could hit it could people in the head. What's happening, Charlie, is very interesting because the players themselves are feeling the anxiety knowing that they could be potentially the one to hurt a human being. I took the license of creating a tab called A New Baseball Statistic. Present traumatic stress disorder. Why? Because there's young people that are not playing the game free and clear, Charlie. They know it's inevitable one of their balls or bats will find the heads of a kid. And that's no way for them to play. And when I speak with them, they say things to me like, Jordan, I just want to play the game free and clear. One kid said to me, when I swing the bat, I always have anxiety, anticipating maybe his ball's going to hit somebody or outside the ballpark in Queens College. To give you a sense of what's happening at Queens College and throughout universities, 5 letters were written to the administration. On letter number 4, a Queens College student reporter had the courage and got a quote from the athletic director. We had heard from him back on the first letter we wrote, like they were looking into it. The bottom line is that student athletes at Queens College have a genuine concern that their balls are reaching elementary school kids, and that's no way for them to play. And we did a small sample on what's happening throughout colleges just at 46 fields. We know, Charlie, there's 900 Major League Baseball players, 30 teams, 900 guys, give or take. There's 5 to 8,000 other professional leagues, all the minor leagues and all the independent leagues. Okay, these are all smaller ballparks where they're synonymous with neighboring fields and parking lots, and unfortunately, people's heads, unless there's nets. And we know there's 35 to 50,000 NCAA, and then we can go further down the line, and maybe hundreds of thousands or millions of high school, etc. Keep on going further down. All zip codes need a conversation, Charlie, because I get calls from all levels of baseball. Help. I get people on our Continuum series that are telling me they're tired of seeing balls go over on the sides onto the 2-lane highways and things like that. Or people who own houses and bought a house next to a field where balls are hitting their houses during practice and games, and the kids can't play outside. I do what I can to make sure that these conversations will start. You know what, Charlie? There's solutions, but if the billionaires ever worked it out and we had no strings and conditions attached to the game experience inside and out, guess what? They would be adopting local zip codes all over, and we would have, wow, what a world vision
Right. They
of
would
peace in baseball.
solve this in 5 minutes. My understanding is that MLB players are very aware of the danger and that when their own family members come to the game, they make sure that they're seated in a protected area where they're not gonna get hit. I mean, is that something that you've heard as well?
Yeah, so Brendan and I we've done our 90 interviews. 1/3 of those interviews were formal interviews with many guys who played the game, who had a lot of ghosts and skeletons in their closet because they never addressed it then, and now they have an opportunity to address it now. And they do tell us their parents were sitting in the areas. New on the website, Charlie, as well, over the last few months, there's a new wellness organization that contracted with the MLB Players Union. Wellness? Who is this company? So it's up on the website somewhere where people can see a new company. MLB used to just have 900 members in their union. Now they have 120 times 30 players, give or take. So we're talking from 900, give or take, to now 3,600 more. So it brings their rank and file to 4,500. The psychological well being needs to be addressed because I know at an early age, they're human beings with red blood, as far as I know, who want to play the game free and clear, and they don't want to hurt anyone. But unfortunately, all previous generations have not effectively stepped up. MLB Players Union supposedly has negotiated 4 separate times in collective bargaining with MLB about netting. How about them both acknowledging we failed, and let's commission an outside agency of architects, engineers, and designers that are going to come up with the solutions like that? What's been going down at MLB is probably one guy wearing too many hats who's working with some independent netting contractor. It's not the way a billion-dollar organization, multi-billion-dollar organization should be operating. And I think with a little bit of investigation, mud on the face will be exposed that there never was that proper team of architects, engineers, and designers that created a system inside and out, that everyone's expectations were met. And I'm all about a conversation, and I don't care if people are age appropriate and they still want to take risks. Just tell them up front and don't include 2-year-olds in that group, in that section. I don't mind risk takers. Just tell them that they're taking a risk. And if they're age appropriate, go ahead. I don't care. People run with bulls in Spain, but they have to sign a consent and they don't bring the little kiddos with them.
Well,
I believe there's hundreds
the
of
point
thousands of experiences
and the
a
point is
year.
that they're not being told the truth, and that in fact those statistics are being kept from them, and that there's the fine print on the back of the ticket that tells you that
Yes.
right? And that
You're
that's
assu you're assuming the risk.
you're assuming there is. And that fine print is even harder to find now when you buy your tickets online. It's like
We know. It's on
it's so
e-tickets, but
right.
it's not been conveyed in a dignified manner. Why
No.
it's that should not be discovered. People are not gonna discover it at that so-called kitchen table when they decide to make an informed decision on the next
Right.
recreational activity. That's not the way to do it. They've had the data winter after winter after winter, but all they do is keep on coming out with slick campaigns that keep on feeding into the wholesome apple pie, unconditional good times and fun. But
Right.
what we know, it's always about strings and conditions that you guys just didn't realize. You will empathize and sympathize once Brendan and I produce our first book about the infant child and read all about what was preventable then and what's preventable now. But we feel like if you come back with us on a regular basis, you're going to be outraged as we will. And Brianna's getting paid to be part of this campaign. Brendan's getting paid to be part of this campaign. I want to continue to pay you, Charlie, to be part of this campaign because I know you're all about seeking truth, and I know you're all about telling powerful stories, and I know you're about absorbing where real life meets art, as the expression goes. And we're in the middle of this baseball hidden crisis. And we welcome that you're part of this journey with us. Did you have any other questions, Charlie? You want to wind it down
Yeah,
for
it's just like I
today?
just feel
Of
like, we're
course.
talking about the print on the back of the ticket. I was just thinking like,
Mhm.
when you go to different sections, they'll say like this is wheelchair accessible or this is no alcohol section or whatever. Like, why couldn't they say this section is a hot zone for foul balls, or something like that? There's nothing anywhere in the stadium that suggests that there's any risk at all. and that just
There may
doesn't seem right.
there may be signs on seat holders and cup holders that you be
Huh?
careful of foul balls and announcements, but even then,
I
we're
don't see
not
them.
superheroes in that. Okay, well, some
I haven't
ballparks
seen
may have it. Either
Right,
way, it's still we're not superheroes in action figures, so we
right.
weren't told in advance in a proper manner. Why weren't we finally told, and when will we be finally told that there are strings and conditions attached to this experience? And every week or every month, I will continually learn of new people that have had unfortunate life altering injuries, who will never go to another game, whose child will be learning that baseball is dysfunctional, and their next generation of family will be not looking at baseball as wholesome. Now, we could live as a society where 99% and more of the people will never be fazed by any of this. And it will continually be passed down to generation. And they won't even think a thing about it. But we know too much of foul ball safety now, and it's time for call to action. And Charlie, we welcome you and invite you to come down every week with us on this creative journey with us and figure out what are we going to do with this madness as we discuss this. I will continue to bring all of my interpretations of all of the interviews that we're doing once or twice a week. I will continue to bring a lot of a commitment to collecting and organizing the data as it continually gets larger and larger. And Charlie, you have a day or two to let us know whether you want to come back and be
Oh,
part
I'll
of
tell
this.
you right now, I'm happy to come back. I'm
All
happy
right,
to talk about you,
let's do
and,
it
I
again
look
next
forward
week.
to it. That would be a
Charlie,
pleasure.
thank you for seeking truth with us. We
Thank you,
believe
Jordan.
we're going to find the
Thank you,
project in
Brianna.
common here, and the audience will tune into all of our episodes. This is episode
Alright.
number 1 on a variation of the Continuum series with Charlie, Brianna, and I on Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. Thank you, everyone. Hope to do it again soon.